How many people do you know who struggle with their health? Chances are, whether they show it or not, most of the people in your life do. And chances are, you're one of them. Whether you're dealing with anxiety, depression, endometriosis, acne, eczema, autoimmune, thyroid, Lyme, brain fog, fatigue, or any other symptom or condition, you're far from alone. Living with symptoms has become the new normal. So no more guessing games. It's time to get answers. Welcome to the Medical Medium Podcast. I'm Anthony William. We're talking about the fog. That's right, the fog. A lot of people lately complaining there's an eerie sensation in the air, an eerie fog that won't lift, that's actually covering different parts of the country, different counties, different towns, different villages, even all over the world. A mysterious fog. Worse, after they sit in this fog, walk through this fog, jog in this fog, they get sick. They don't feel well. Something goes wrong with their health. People are complaining everywhere. So in this episode, really hang on for the ride, fasten yourself in, because this isn't going to be an easy one. It's not going to be an easy one to hear, but it has to be done. What is this fog? You see a lot of people complaining out there lately. Fog hysteria. They're crying about the fog, talking about the fog. Influencers on social are talking about the fog. People are claiming they don't feel good. Something's wrong. They're seeing fog when they shouldn't be seeing fog. Seeing fog that's really unusual. Sits for a long time. Takes days and days to clear. They're seeing fog that they've never seen before in their lifetime, so they're talking about it on social. The fog conspiracy has started. People are worried. When you're sitting in a town and the town is under the fog, saturated by the fog, everybody sees it, they're living in it, that's one thing. It's another to start feeling sick, or people start complaining about symptoms, not feeling good. When they go outdoors, when they hop in their car, drive around in it, do errands, do appointments, or they go outdoors, do something in the yard, or take a jog, or take a stroll, and they're breathing in that fog, they're living in that fog, they come home, and they feel sick. Are people feeling sick because of the fog? Are they getting ill because of the fog? Yes and no. The fog, which can be a low-lying cloud, can be highly toxic. Fog in the old days isn't the same fog of today. Smog fog is not the same as it was 30 years ago, 40 years ago, and 50 years ago. Smog fog is much more dangerous, much more toxic because of one component. Precipitation fog, moisture fog, is not the same as it was 30, 40 years ago either. Fog over a bay, over a river, over a channel, fog around a mountain, fog in a canal, in a canyon, is not the same as it was 30, 40 years ago either. It's a toxic fog now. All the fog that we see that lies low, that we breathe in, that we feel on our skin, that we walk in, is highly toxic. And why is it highly toxic? Truly because of one reason. Sure, there are other small reasons to make pollution, smog, fog, fog, smog, but not dangerous, not sickeningly dangerous. So the true reason why people are getting sick and the true reason why the fog is really toxic is chemtrails. Simply chemtrails. And people on social media that are complaining, saying they're getting really sick, or gassed. And that's what happens when the fog is this toxic. You're being gassed. And if you're a person that goes down, you go down because of a chemtrail, because out on social media, you see people, you see influencers just screaming their heads off. They're saying how they're not better from it. They're still sick, that it's dragging on. Something's wrong. Something terrible was in the fog because they're still suffering. It happened on the night of the fog, It happened in the morning. It happened when they got into the fog. And they're sick ever since. And it's not stopping. They can't get better. They're going to doctors. They're looking for help. And their life completely changed. Out of nowhere, just because of the fog, it completely changed. And if you see a lot of people out there that are unwell from the fog and they're talking about it and they don't feel good still, they're the canaries. Canaries in the coal mine. They're the ones getting triggered by it. They're the ones going down because of it. Somebody else might have been in the same fog that morning. Someone else could have been jogging or running through that fog, just felt a little tired because of it. They're not going down. They're not sick now. They're not having neurological symptoms left and right. And they were in the fog too. So it makes it more difficult. It makes it harder because why aren't they feeling the same way? And the thing is, the toxic fog is affecting them. They just might not be feeling it now. They may feel it down the road when their cup spilleth over, when the scale tips. But meanwhile, other people, where their scale is about to tip, end up getting knocked down from it now. They get knocked down from the chemtrails being low level because something was percolating inside of them. They were already in a weakened state. Their immune systems were already compromised. It's like anything. It just takes that certain point of time before it all just crumbles. If you take somebody who has chemical sensitivities and they sit inside a batch of fog and they sit outside while that low cloud is hanging down, they could be fine. But if it happens to be saturated with chemtrails, they won't be fine. They'll be sensitive. They'll feel it, and they'll feel it knock them hard. They may not know what caused it, and there's a lot of people that are chemical sensitive. They have chemical sensitivities, and they are affected by the toxic fog lately. And maybe they don't even know why. They just think they're having an episode. And they don't know it's because they just walk through the fog. And then take somebody that doesn't have any real symptoms yet, at least real neurological symptoms yet, like migraines and chronic fatigue and fibro and aches and pains throughout the body, nerve pain, dizziness, tingles, numbness, tremors, shakes, tics, spasms, and they end up walking through the fog, or they're in it for a couple of days, or breathing it in, or sitting outside in it, or running in it, and then something hits them, and they're like, whoa, I don't feel good, and it happened just when I came in from the fog. This is a person where their scale was just about to tip. Something else could have done it. Something coming would have done it. Maybe a breakup in a relationship, maybe some betrayal, which is really toxic on the immune system, on the adrenals, maybe something else. Like they got an overload of toxic heavy metals, maybe they got exposure through some other avenue, but whatever it is, the scale was going to tip. It's just the toxic fog did it. The chemtrails did it. They were gassed. And as they were gassed, their central nervous system said, that's it. I'm done. Because there was a stealth underlying problem that was already in the making, already in the works. And that was the last straw that broke the camel's back. That was death by 1,000 cuts, and it was the 1,000th cut. The sad part is it's just innocent fog, nature, taken over by pure evil, evildoers, filled with chemicals, chemical warfare, biological chemical warfare, placed upon people. Then people get gassed by it. Then they get sick. Then they have to run to doctors. Then they lose their livelihood. They lose their careers. They have to change their lives. They get sick. And yes, the reality is the chemtrails are a bad trigger, a big bad wolf. A super trigger is what it is. So if there's an underlying health problem, a stealth problem, central nervous system is about to boink out anyway. It might just take another year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years later, and the chemtrails rushed it along. But the stealth underlying problem is once again pathogens, and yeah, toxic heavy metals, and other different forms of exposure. The chemtrails are fully loaded. Lots of different poisons and toxins. It's basically sitting inside of a chemtrail when the fog comes down in certain areas. And they're spraying chemtrails really thick, really heavy right now. Two people can walk through that fog. One person gets sick, really sick, and they stay sick. They got neurological symptoms. They got fatigue. The brain isn't working. It's not working the way they want it to. They got brain fog. The other person, they feel pretty good. Maybe they felt a little bit dry-mouthed. Maybe they felt a little weak, got a mild headache. But both were exposed to the same toxic cloud, to the same gas, to the same toxins that came down in it, the same fog. They both got exposed. One person didn't feel so bad. They moved on with their life. The other one, now couch island, mattress island. And that's the difference. One person's scale didn't tip yet. The other person's did. Their liver was already maxed out, already stagnant, sluggish, filled with poisons, filled with toxins, and maybe the right kind of poisons and toxins, like dermatoxins, neurotoxins, from low-grade infections like Epstein-Barr and shingles. And it just took just enough to finally say, boom. And a chemtrail inside of a cloud, or multiple chemtrails with thousands of chemicals inside of the fog, and breathing that in could easily push somebody over. And guess what? It has. Many people around the country and many people around the world. So why are chemtrails in the fog? What's going on with that? To begin with, there's so many chemtrails now that they have no other place to go. They don't just fall in a way they expected it to happen in the last 40, 50 years. Now they cluster like toxic soups up in the sky, toxic brews. Here's the problem. So many different chemicals from so many different sources. Chemtrails aren't just barium trails. Chemtrail project isn't what people think it is. The truth is, chemical industries all around the planet have private deals, and they're sending planes up. They're paying for the service. Planes to take their backlog of chemicals, bring them up into the sky and drop them on us, because they don't drop them into the oceans and the rivers and the lakes anymore. They can't drop them there because it would destroy and kill our lakes, oceans, and rivers, because there's more chemicals produced now than there ever was. In the 1940s and 1950s, our oceans were getting really polluted really fast. And then it started to clean up in the 1970s and 1980s. And in the old days, chemicals had to run off into rivers, into lakes, into oceans, and landfills. But see, that's not happening anymore. If it was happening still, the world would be destroyed. Instead, they came up with this osmosis way of handling it. They made deals and they got planes taking it up. Old chemicals too, from 1920s, 1930s, 1940s, World War II, World War I, chemicals, backlog of chemicals, all going into planes. Chemicals produced every day in the industries now, all going up in planes. The runoff. They can't put it in rivers and lakes, but they can sprinkle it down on everybody and kind of do a different type of plan. Let nature take its course. Let nature deal with it on a dispersing level, slow and easy. Drop it from very high above, drop it down. Sprinkling it all around the planet is much different than having a direct runoff coming from every single factory, every single plant. Because a direct runoff will show serious damage right there in that area, versus sprinkling it all around the planet onto everybody. It's still just as toxic. It's still making the planet dirtier by the day, but you can't see its outpour in certain areas, concentrated in just certain areas. But when it's concentrated heavily in a fog, and you're in that fog and you're breathing it in, it's like being at the edge of the river where a plant or a factory is, and something's leaking out of that plant or factory, chemical runoff. And it's like being on the edge of the river where the runoff meets the river, and you're sitting there having a picnic and you're breathing in all that chem and your feet are in there. It's similar to that. And then you get sick instantly. It's heavy concentrations of chemicals, thousands of different kinds of chemicals, chemicals that are illegal and not even allowed to be here because they're in old storage bins and put into the sky. It's the only way they can get rid of them. The chemtrail planes have their own airports, and the chemtrail program has hundreds and hundreds of thousands of planes, and they're in the air all the time, which is why, on another note, millions of birds are falling out of the sky all around the globe. Eventually, at some point, we're not going to have birds. Between the bird flu and all the chemicals from the chemtrails, birds won't have an easy existence here. Just like a canary in a coal mine, we have birds up in the sky telling us something's wrong. The birds in the sky are telling us there's no oxygen. The birds in the sky are telling us there's deadly chemicals and it's killing the birds and they're falling out of the sky. Just like a canary is in a cage in a coal mine and dying in front of everybody. Anyone who gets a long-lasting sickness from a chemtrail, a sickness that's lasting more than an hour, more than half a day, was already going to get sick. Something else was going to trigger them. Whether it was carpet cleaning chemicals from getting a carpet cleaned inside the house, whether it was a power wash on the outside of the house, whether it was in their apartment building and a whole bunch of pesticides were laid on the lawn or around the building, or they were at a friend's house and the friend's house had 2 or 3 varieties of mold and they breathed it in. They were already going to get sick and already going to be on the road to, oh my God, I'm sick, I'm not well, I have to get help. 10 neurologists, all different kinds of biohacks for the next 2 to 5 to 10 years, and on their way to Couch Island or Mattress Island. And they're always going to remember, and they're always going to tell their doctors and their friends and their family members, it was the fog. It was that night in the fog. It was that morning jogging in the fog. It was that day when the fog was happening, that week when the fog was happening, when everybody was talking about it around the planet. It was the fog. Or it was the mold at my friend's house or the mold underneath my sink. It started when I breathed in that mold. I was in a moldy place, or my house got moldy and it started then. That's the reason. Or I was in the woods and I saw a tick crawling on my leg and it bit me, and it started ever since that trip. And meanwhile, the tick was a trigger, not the underlying cause, not the underlying illness of why the person's unwell or not feeling good. And meanwhile, it's not the fog either. That's just a trigger. It's not the underlying cause. The chemtrails are a trigger, and when they're concentrated, like in a cloud, and that cloud becomes low-lying or precipitation, adds to forming a fog over a waterway or a mountainside or a canyon, you got yourself a major trigger. Chemtrails saturated in a fog, a toxic, highly toxic fog, being gassed. Same thing with mold. Mold's a trigger. Getting some serious mold exposure could lower the immune system, allowing for something underlying, something there, something stealth, like pathogens to rise up. And when it comes down to chemtrails, they are filled with toxic heavy metals, and someone could already be at their toxic heavy metal height, their limit. They got enough lead, mercury, copper, they got enough toxic calcium, arsenic, they got enough aluminum, and they're at that place where they get more and it collects and it's too much. It's too heavy on the body, too hard on the immune system, and they go down. The one thing about chemical-filled fog, chemtrail fog, is it enters the sinuses. It's a tricky place because it's chemicals directly going into the lungs but into the sinuses. When chemicals from chemtrails enter sinuses on a concentrated level like this, it goes to the brain. And that's the scary part of the toxic fog. It makes it more of an annoying trigger, a more dangerous trigger. Someone could already be in a neurotransmitter deficiency place, or electrical impulses are weak, or they're high in toxic heavy metals in the brain and they have a lot of oxidation and runoff. And brain fog and ADHD and ADD are already occurring. Maybe they're already on amphetamines prescribed for it. Somebody could be already struggling with a little bit of brain fog, and then they inhale the chemtrail soup right out of the fog. It goes right into the sinuses, up into their brain. It cuts through the sinus passages. It hits the brain pretty easily, and it's all someone needs if they're already struggling. They become the person that gets highly affected by it. Now, all fog is not the same. Keep that in mind. There could be fog, and it's nature, and it has chemicals in it from chemtrails being dropped out of planes, low-lying clouds that become fog, but it's not all the same everywhere. So all around the planet, it's not the same brew. It's not the same thing. It's not a conspiracy where governments are actually putting some kind of toxin out and it's being planted all over the planet on purpose. It's actually an accidental conspiracy. it's the chemtrail conspiracy turning into something else. They didn't plan on it this way, I'm sure. In fact, they just wanted to disperse it, have it not really seen, have it considered a contrail, not a chemtrail, let it just fall down on everybody evenly. Not in their wildest dreams did they ever think that these concoctions would accumulate in small areas in the fog and be so dangerous, hyper dangerous, that people get sick when they breathe it in. They just thought you disperse it out of planes, let it fall, let it land wherever it's going to land. No one's going to know about it. No one's going to realize it. And that's the conspiracy. It's dumping the chemicals out. Wherever it goes, it goes. And that's the bottom line. But, like I said, in their wildest dreams, they didn't realize it would become toxic formulations that clustered in fog all around the planet, all around the world. It was a bonus. It was a bonus for the evildoers. It was an added extra plus for them. Poisonous fog was pro bono. I mean, they do direct planes in certain areas. They do concentrate planes in certain areas of the world on purpose. They do want to block out the light. They don't want crops to grow good, all of that. But they didn't realize the fog aspect. Clusters of poisonous fog, perfect. That toxic poisonous fog that's filled with chemtrails isn't the same everywhere, and there's a reason for that. Some planes are dropping chemicals, surplus of chemicals from World War II out of their planes. Some planes are dumping DDT out of their planes. Some planes are dumping aluminum, mercury, cadmium, lead. That's right, lead. A backlog from lead water running out of factories decades and decades ago, yesteryear. Some planes are shooting out lots of petroleum, old gasoline, old diesel that's rotten, spoiled, has nowhere to go. You can't do anything with it. You can't even burn it. It's too toxic. And what about the backlog of Agent Orange? That's being released too. Those are chemtrails as well, being dropped out. Falls from the sky, clusters in different areas. It could be the cloud near you. It could be the fog near you. Or you could be the fog that has all the outdated herbicide. They got nowhere to throw it, nowhere to put it, nowhere to dump it. Ends up in the plains and out the chute. And now it's floating in the sky. Old herbicides from guess when? 70 years ago, 80 years ago, 50 years ago, 40 years ago. And it's just dropping on everybody while they're having a picnic, while they're grilling some food on their grill. But your fog could be any soup or brew. And it could be anywhere around the planet. Your fog is different than somebody else's fog. Could make you sick, can make someone else sick, can make a friend or a family member sick, but it's a different fog. It's a different brew. They're not all the same. It's not a program where they're releasing something out of some helicopter, which they do, but that's not this. And whatever they're releasing goes into a little tiny fog cloud around your town, and it sits there for a week or two because they planned it and they wanted a fog. They wanted some kind of toxic fog around your town. That's not it. It's just a bonus. It's just a plus for them. It's chemtrails gone wrong. An unexpected delight that they love and revel in. Who's they? Evildoers, Illuminati, hierarchy, call them what you will, call them what you want. People that have control over the planet, way above the governments, way above the governments. And to simplify it all, if you're somebody with an Epstein-Barr infection, shingles infection, cytomegalovirus infection, simplex 1, simplex 2, all different herpes, bacterial infections, antibiotic-resistant bacterial infections, lots of different streps, somebody with toxic heavy metals, mercury, lead, aluminum, copper already in their brain, affecting their liver. Boom. All it takes is a trigger. And maybe you're somebody that doesn't know you have all that in your system, and you've just been diagnosed with autoimmune. You're kind of skating by on some biohacks. You're doing okay. You're watching what you eat. And then boom, that fog takes you down. You're in the fog one day, trying to get a run, try to get an exercise in. You're getting up early in the morning. You're out there. You breathe in the fog. You feel it on your skin. You're taking it all in. Maybe you do it for 2 to 3 days. By the end of the week, you're like, oh, I don't feel good. Something's wrong here. You hear about somebody else talking about it, and you're like, it's the fog. Ever since the fog, I'm now sick. And that's why it's critical to get to the underlying problems, down to the root cause. It's critical to battle those pathogens, to kill off those viruses. Yep, viruses. That's right. Viruses that release neurotoxins, that get the liver all clogged up as the years go by, that cause all kinds of neurological symptoms. You could be right on the edge. You breathe in that fog, that chemtrail, and boom, now you're really hurting. So many people are dealing with this with all kinds of other triggers, not just the fog. There are many, many triggers. But yes, the fog is a nasty trigger, and not every fog in your area, not every bit of fog on the planet is highly polluted. It's all got some chemtrail in it. But yes, they're dumping heavy because that's their plan. Dump a lot of chem out of the planes, especially with all the stuff happening now, all the changing of the guards. Try to get all the chem out while they can, because you never know. Somebody might stop them someday soon. So they got a lot of chemical. They have to drop now and get rid of it as fast as possible. So yeah, the air is going to be more toxic than normal. There's going to be a lot of streaks across the sky, and the fog is going to be heavily laden in toxic chemtrails. But it's not about the fear and the chaos of it all, because it's happening no matter what. So we could either know about it or not know about it. We could either be aware of it so we don't walk into a bus, or we cannot teach anybody that a bus could be driving by and just have them just walk right into it. I prefer knowing, and I think that you guys prefer knowing too. And also, another thing to know is we can do something about it for ourselves. Can't control the chemtrails falling out of the sky. You can't control toxic clusters of chemtrail fog, but you can control what you put in your body. You can control getting things out of your body, like those poisons coming from those chemtrails and the fog. You can do the morning cleanse. You can do the medical medium heavy metal detox and extractor. You can do the 28-day cleanse, the 369 cleanse, the mono cleanse. You can take control. You can get poisons and toxins out of the body faster than they're going in. And if you've been affected by the toxic fog or the toxic air or anything else, you can work on getting those poisons out of the body. You can kill pathogens. You can knock pathogens and toxins out of the body. You can kill Epstein-Barr. You can kill shingles. You can kill strep bacteria. There are tools. Medical medium tools are there. You got the zinc shock therapy. You got the B12 shock therapy, the golden seal shock therapy. You got the aloe shock therapy, the propolis shock therapy, and more. There are ways to heal and move forward and not be afraid. Instead, heal and recover. And because of the heavy chemtrails, because of how much you're dumping out of the sky right now on top of all of us, on top of everybody's family, on top of everybody's friends, on top of each person, I've been doing propolis. I've been doing golden seal for myself, and even some more B12. Those are 3 things I've increased and brought in heavily because I need something to battle what they're doing, dumping all that crap out of the sky. And the fog, I know that when I go into the fog, I want to be strong. I want my immune system capable of eating those particles, capable of eating them out and spitting them out and being able to cleanse them out without breaking my immune system down. So I've been increasing propolis, golden seal, and B12. Once again, it's not about fear. It's not about being afraid. It's about being aware. It's about empowerment. How to protect yourself. Knowing what's around you and how it can affect you is critical. For more information, grab a copy when you can of Medical Medium Cleanse to Heal or Medical Medium Brain Saver or Brain Saver Protocols. You can also subscribe to my newsletter or go to medicalmedium.com. And lately, I've been leaving exclusive messages on Telegram. So if you get a chance, check me out there. And remember, you can take this information to your doctor and ask your doctor what's right for you. Many blessings, and God bless you. Take a jog right into the fog. Feels so nice. Eyes twitching, arms feel like ice. The color seems to glow. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Eyes are watering. Heads feel bewildering. Was it this? Something tells me it's darkness. They drop it down day in, day out, 24 hours, 7 days a week, without making a squeak. Sometimes without a sound. It can't be cheap. $1 trillion a year to put that many planes up there. Nobody seems to care. Just a few now, just becoming aware. After all these years. The fog is a sign that the earthly mother may someday resign. Hard to purify the earth. Her body's growing tired of the war on human life. The war on good. They just can't play nice. They want the healthy to be sick. They want nothing right. Look up in the sky as they fly by. God will take them down. Many decades from now, the planes won't take flight. And when it happens, bloodshed deepens in the world in which we know greatly cheapens the colorful rays of a rainbow. Look up. It's shimmering, glistening, colorful light. Watch it flicker in great delight. I just want to say, don't despair. You can heal from whatever they spray in the air. You can make yourself strong. You can repel their plan of toxic wrong. The body has a way to heal. It's got built-in mechanisms. It's got your back. You just gotta know its song.
Original published medical medium information gets stolen and poached by podcast doctors, social media doctors, influencers, and medical clinics. Medical medium information has never yet been proven wrong by medical science and research. Instead, the opposite, only proven right and then taken from medical medium published material and used in the conventional and alternative health communities. Medical medium information continually sets the stage for medical science to understand chronic illness better. If you choose to share or use the original, unique content from the Medical Medium podcast, books, or Medical Medium social media, please cite where this information comes from, so others who see and learn of this information have a chance to know where it all originates, to give them an opportunity to heal, so they don't end up losing years of their life searching for answers like so many have before them. The Medical Medium information here on this podcast doesn't come from broken science, interest groups, medical funding with strings attached, botched research, lobbyists, internal kickbacks, persuaded belief systems, private panels of influencers, health field payoffs, trendy traps, or gathered bits and pieces of gimmicky confusion. Because chronic illness is exploding like never before in our modern day history, it takes a greater force than us down here. It takes a helping hand from above. Medical medium information has street cred. It's an organic movement of countless people around the world healing. More healing stories of real people not being paid to tell their life-changing experiences of rising out of the ashes of sickness and entering into the light of full recovery, getting their lives back and finally healing when nothing else in the world of health could move the needle and get them better. The information on this podcast is not man-made. It comes from above, from a higher source. Whatever you believe in, whether God, the universe, the light, or the creator, or if you believe in nothing at all, that we're just floating through space together on this rock. Know that the information you hear on this podcast is separate from all the other noise out there. It comes from a different place, a pure, untampered with, advanced, clean, uncorrupted, original, primary source, a higher source, spirit of compassion.